I'll just close with this. It's called Grazing. In a rustic county, northern Maine, I knew nothing about fiddleheads or the northern lights. I didn't even know enough not to eat the skin of a potato, my favorite part. Now farmers spray potatoes with chemicals twice, once while still in the ground and once in the trucks. The farmers looked sad when they told me. They're absolutely certain that poison stays in the skin. I went to see a man in the next town who knew where to find pussy willows. His wife had invited me. He was sitting on his couch eating popcorn when I arrived. "Have you seen a moose yet?" he asked. When I said no, he stayed silent for a long time. He seemed angry. Then he blurted, "I'm thinking about death today. When my parents were alive, I didn't think about it. I didn't have to. Now they're dead, and nothing's standing between us, between me and death. I'm next." He sat there, and his wife brought me a smaller bowl of popcorn. We all sat there, eating, not speaking. A wood stove waited the room and a shelf of old science projects, rocks with dusty labels, mounted drawings of seeds. I could smell winter coming out of the couch, musty, smoky, so long, so cold. We went into the woods together, wearing jackets, stepping on stones between crusts of leftover snow. "It's the ugliest time of year," their daughter said. "April is always ugliest. It's not green or white." I liked the shades of brown and gray, but didn't say so. It's easy to like things you don't see very often. Days before, a boy had asked me if I really drove all the way up from Texas, and I said yes, I really drove in a car, a regular car. He wanted to know how much gas it took. "Tell me about everything between here and there," he said. I asked if he had ever been south, and he hadn't even been to Bangor. His voice had the whack of a shovel in it. I wanted to stroke his potato-colored hair. In the woods, the pussy willows were growing out of a bush where the man knew they would be. We clipped them with a pair of shears his wife carried in her back pocket. We snipped rust-colored weeds with shaggy heads and loaded our arms. We crossed a loud stream on a narrow, icy bridge. They took me to a cabin where they camp out sometimes in summer. The door had a padlock on it, and the smell of the bunk beds inside was powerful, piney. "It smells lonesome in here," their daughter said. "Let's open the windows and let the smell out." But her father said they had to wait till summer. I admitted I was still hoping for a moose, and he said, "If you walked about 10 hours on that path we came in on, you'd see one for sure. Just keep walking into the woods." "But by then it would be dark," I said. And he said, "That's right." Going back to their house, the daughter walked behind us. Her parents told me they'd grown up exactly across the road from one another, right down from their current driveway. He had lived on this side of the road in a house that was now gone, and she had lived on the other side, above the store. They knew each other forever, knew each other's parents, playthings, faults. It did not surprise them in the least that they were still here together. But suddenly he put his arm out and stopped us all, whispering, "There." I looked hard for a moose, but saw nothing. "There, across the field, black dot, moving slightly." He pulled some small field glasses from his pocket and peered through them. "A bear," stretching his arms. He handed the glasses to me. It was a real bear, waking up. His wife placed her hand on my shoulder. He can always spot them. Without the field glasses, that bear didn't look like much, but the knowledge of what it was astounded me. Hibernation. So long, so cold. "He'll be real hungry for the next few days," the man said. We walked back to the house with our bounty, feeling rich. Before I left, they took me up to the attic. Everything waited there, his father's bed, her mother's hat stand. He brought out maps and photographs. There were places nearby without any public roads. You could sneak up on a moose bathing in a lake and jump on its back and ride it till it bucked you off. He had a name for it, like a sport, but I forget what it was. We sat on the front porch in the twilight before I left. "It's a mistake, you know," he said. "We should have been part of Canada. It's always been hard to understand." And just sitting there made me feel the way you feel when tree branches part above your head and a little light comes shining through. He said, "Yeah, it's good you came, because everybody around here knows exactly the same things, so what can you talk about?" That night, in the other town where I was staying, a neighbor called. My hosts weren't home, so I talked to her. "Still looking for that moose," I said. She told me there had been 2 moose grazing in her front yard all morning. I shouted, "Where are they now?" And she reported, "They left. They took off. I would have called, but I didn't know anyone was interested. They weren't even in a hurry."